Hello, Ciaran, Tomas, Leah and I are still here in Croke Park, having watched Dublin beat Mayo and earlier Derry beat Cork in the All-Ireland football quarter-finals. And now we have a draw for the semi-final to look ahead to. Dublin against Monaghan and Kerry against Derry. Now, you already gave your initial reactions to the draw. When you look at Kerry-Derry, Tomas, given that the Kerry midfield really stood up finally yesterday, and you see what Brendan Rodgers and Conor Glass bring in terms of midfield play, that surely that is a battle that, well, we'd certainly be savouring.
Yeah, but I also think, when you're talking about the modern day midfielders, it comes back to the goalies, and if you're going to be piking it out, then it becomes a battle in the middle of the park. But if it's a case that you can get, and in fairness to Kerry, they do work very hard on getting those kickouts out short, and they avoid a battle in the midfield, so it doesn't become. And when you're talking about Jim O'Connor, you're not talking about high fetching or anything. I thought he had a brilliant game yesterday, and part of that, his two main roles yesterday were tackling, covering, tracking, and also then getting forward, which he did brilliantly. So I don't think that'll frighten Kerry. I think he's been man of the match the last 2 days. I think last 2 days he's played, I think he's done really, really well. I think the one area, if you're going to be really particular about it, the one area that would possibly frighten or make Kerry people nervous would be, will they break down that Derry defence? That's the main thing. I think they will deal with Derry counter-attacking, and I'm not calling it right now, but I'm just telling you, I do think it would be the one area that did make them nervous, but I wouldn't be too nervous about it. I think that they're a more equipped team to take on a team set up like that now.
But we know Conor McCluskey. I will get your thoughts on the midfield in a moment, but just because Tomas brought up the defence, Conor McCluskey famously took on David Clifford when he scored those 4 goals in a minor final. But what a footballer Conor McCluskey has become. So what are your views? Is it likely to be him? Is it likely to be Chrissy McKaigue? What are we thinking?
I think it has to be Chris McKaigue. I think he's their out-and-out man marker. Again today he took Sherlock and he got whipped off after 50 minutes, so he'll be the prime candidate, I think. But the one thing, I suppose, where Derry are strong, and you're probably right, they're probably well equipped to deal with, is the runners off McCluskey, McGinless, these guys who are just driving at the heart. The one area that Derry will need performance up top, I thought they looked quite light today, and without Shane McGuigan, they didn't have a lot of threat, and the threat did come from deep. So I think if that's going to be an issue against Kerry, I think they're in a lot of trouble. But I think we rightly alluded to, Derry have a lot to work on, and that can be a very dangerous couple of weeks for Kerry to try and, I suppose, analyse and deal with that kind of threat. So it's all in Kerry's court, but I think Derry have so much to improve on that they'll make it hard work for Kerry.
The only dynamic that's slightly different is that, like, if you look at Cork playing today, Cork kind of have to readjust the way you play for Derry, because they kind of impose themselves on the game. They play the same way. They'll like you talk about that kick out, they will push up, right up. Now, will they leave Clifford hovering in behind, or like Kerry have so many dangers there? But that's the big difference with Derry this year, is that they, like last year, they came here, sat deep, were looking to hit off the counter. Galway eventually, worked them out, got through them. They are different this year. So Kerry definitely can't come into this game with their eyes closed. You're going to have to readjust your game a small bit to cope with the way they go with that high press, and the way then they defend. There's some, like, again, I don't know whether zone, like, they run the ball, and I don't know whether you can do that in Croke Park. I think that the question has to be answered. But they're very, very good in terms of that drift defence and drift attack. Like, that was the difference between themselves and Cork today. So Kerry will have to readjust, I think. Yeah,
I do think having Clifford up front especially deters teams from really. They might push up, but it's really the second it's gone, they're coming back.
It's all
There's a bit of a fear there.
So do you think Derry have to adjust the same game plan they use all the time?
I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying it'll be back of their minds that if they lose that long ball, it's not a case of just because it's going long, Kerry are going to lose it. Kerry will win a certain amount of possession out around the middle of the field, and if you have good kickers like Diarmuid O'Connor and Paddy Clifford rifling balls straight in, then it's a huge risk, because a lot of the attention will be on Clifford, but then they have a good bench. I think Jack worked it very cleverly last day, whatever came in, and it had an impact, and I think Paul Ganey will there is a little bit of pressure. I think Kerry's firepower frightens teams.
Great kickers,
but at the other end of the field, the one person I think has been brilliant the last couple of years, and he seems to be getting better and better, is Jason Foley.
Yeah, he was man of the match, possibly.
Like,
he was outstanding.
He's definitely going to pick up McGuigan.
But, like,
it was always a strength.
One area Kerry will, I think, do really well is their kickers from long range. like showing shape
Yeah,
on an
from
exhibition
around
side. So
the
if it is
edge.
compact in there, they have that danger of shooting from the 40, 45 and getting points on that.
It's fickle.
And they were
like,
smart. They were very smart with that yesterday.
Yeah.
They were out
Over the
there.
blanket.
They knew where the wind was coming from, and they kicked
And they'll have a
from
couple of wides,
the edge
but
of
they have the attack option there.
I've never
Dublin Monaghan, because we do there are two semi-finals, and the Dublin Monaghan will be an interesting one. What way do you think, because Dublin in many people's eyes may have answered quite a few questions today in their performance against Mayo, how do Monaghan ask even more, and do they have the players to do so?
It's very, very. It's going to be very, very difficult for them again. I think Monaghan have, the one thing you can say about Vinnie Corey this year, in terms of the games they played, they have mixed it up. They've been able to play, and a couple of times they sat deep, they were picked off, Derry picked them off, Donegal picked them off. They're suited, I think, when they pushed out, and I think that's why they won the game yesterday, because they looked like they wanted to win it, and they have, I suppose their strength is wing backs in terms of Carl O'Connell and Conor McCarthy and strike runners, and again they're a team that can get scores from outside that arc, and the likes of McCarran inside. But it's going to be very difficult because we know what Dublin are going to bring to the table in terms of that high press. They'll try and pin them in, they'll try and squeeze them, and it really depends on, I think from Dublin's perspective, is that mindset. If they, if Dublin are any way complacent or switched off, we've seen they can be distinctly average, but when they're at the pitch of it, like they were today, they're relentless. So the Dublin mindset would be the only thing you'd be a little bit concerned about.
Last word to you. Do you think that Monaghan can cause an upset?
No, straight up, I think they'll cause them a couple of problems. Just to want to say it for the full game, I think Dublin are too strong, and today we questioned Dublin over the last 3-4 months. I think they answered everything emphatically. So for me, it's a Dublin win.
Okay, we shall see in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you to Ciaran, to Tomas and to Lee. And before that, of course, we have the All-Ireland hurling semi-finals to get through, which take place next weekend. We have them both live for you on Saturday and Sunday. But for now, from all of us here, bye-bye.